to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It's a science place. It's a scientific fact. We're all up in your face. It's time once again for the one, the only Protonic reversal. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. All new for 2023. Yeah. How about that, huh? Ninth year of the show. Is that right? That can't possibly be right. No, I think that's right. Very excited to bring you a bunch of new episodes coming up, including the one right now with Mr. Mario Lalli. I'm very excited to talk to this guy. He's done it all. He is a legend in DIY and in music, and you like to think those things intersect. We'll be talking to him shortly about Fatso Jetson, Rubber Snake Charmers, probably some Yawning Man. I'm sure the word generator will be used once in a while. Good food, good riffs. But first, before we do literally any of that, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I am a rock and roll lifer who has toured and recorded for over 23 years. Most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect. Folks that may or may not be household names, but do something very special. This is episode 318. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, all the archives are at protonicreversal.com, and they're always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. But if you'd like to support the show and get episodes sooner, you can give $1 a month to patreon.com/protonicreversal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to share it along, like, subscribe, or post a review. All that helps people find the show. And it's just a darn nice thing to do. All right. So without further ado, let's bring in all the way live from the desert, Mr. Mario Lalli. Mario!
Hi, Conan. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. You sound great, man.
Good. How's it going?
So great to have you, man. Great. I was going to say, long time no see. It's only been like a month. But how did the show with Gibby go? You guys, Fatso Jetson, was Rubber Snake Charmers? Rubber Snake Charmers.
Yeah.
Just played a pretty cool show. Can you tell a little about that show? I think it's kind of a cool conceit that he's doing.
Oh, it was insane, especially to do on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
You know, the venue, and I think the attendees had no idea what they were in for with that thing. He's one of the artists that has enlisted in a program with the original School of Rock, Paul Green from New York, extended this experience for the students to actually get out and go on the road with different professional artists. And I'm not sure how the selection process goes, but to pick Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers, I mean, I've been around, my kids both, grew up with school. Yeah, they're both musicians, and and so I've kind of seen all the little School of Rock things. I've seen the city college has the teen program, and then the school programs, and I've seen all facets of it. And usually when they do recitals, which I hosted a few at my restaurant because we had a stage and a piano and a PA system, you know, so they'd reach out to me for the club experience for the kids, you know. And so I'd seen it all, but usually the criteria for picking the artists that you're going to perform, it's like usually pop stuff, it's meaning popular and traditional classic kind of structures of pop songs or rock songs. So they do Led Zeppelin, they do Aerosmith, they do Blink-182, or they'll do even more, you know, real poppy stuff too. The Beatles, the Stones, all the like, you know, pretty much KLOS meets, you know, K-Earth. But to choose Gibby Haynes to not only do butthole source material, that alone is insane, but to go on the road with him and perform these songs. 32 kids are on this. Okay, so I booked the show, and I thought it was Victim's Family, badass band, been around.
Amazing band from back in the day. I'm from the Bay Area, so I know them very well. Obviously.
Santa Rosa, yeah. And I've been a fan of theirs for a long, long time. All the stuff Ralph's done, and Ralph Spite, the guitar player,
amazing guitar player.
We're friends, yeah, we're friends, and that's how this came to be. But I thought when he said, you know, Gibby, I thought, oh, well, Victim's Family must be backing him up. And when I finally got the email with all the stuff,
yeah,
it was like, whoa, it's with the kids from the School of Rock. And it's not just 8 kids, it's 32 kids. And anyway, so they showed up in a double-decker. It wasn't a nightliner, so they were having to get hotel rooms every night for all those kids too. I don't know how logistically they did this tour. It's like, it's crazy. But they're like between, on my guess of what I saw that night, they're probably between 13 and 18 years old. And they showed up. I fed them all. I made 3 big pans of baked pasta and some Caesar salad, and they lined up. I fed them all in the venue before, and then they take turns getting off and on for each number. So, and they did all the classic butthole stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Anyway, it was insane. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me because, first of all, I can't think of anyone that, at least back in the day, you'd be least likely to leave your children with than Gibby Haynes, to put it bluntly. But
right.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a flying circus, like just for logistics alone. That's a crazy.
Yeah, the sound man at the A Bar is like a 200 capacity nightclub, typical nightclub.
Yeah.
Restaurant, bar, you know, kind of a small performance room. The stage is limited. Yeah. And the front of house guy at the A Bar was like, what? I mean, they had 3 saxes, 2 basses, 3 guitars. The dual drums thing, a regular trap kit, then a cocktail kit, keyboards, Gibby's weird sound machine. It was just, yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah, logistically, it just all seems so infeasible. It seems so.
I know, that's what made it so amazing. It was like I think what happens is the parents probably pay for this like it's a summer camp. And then
the summer camp is you get to go on tour and play shows.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, go on tour with Gibby Haynes, and I could tell by now he had a rapport with the kids. He kind of knew, you know, he was busting chops with them and stuff. It just, I thought, I told Peter, the School of Rock founder, you know, I told him, I said, this is amazing, dude. I'm kudos to you to pick.
Could you ever imagine like such a thing, like back in the day? Like
no, and I think it's great because it forces the kids. God knows what they're listening to.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they were listening to all kinds of different stuff, but it forces them. The Butthole Surfers is experimental, and it leaves a lot of freedom. So I think, you know, the kids probably got this experience that the guy, I think Paul saw that, like, this is an artist where they can go off, they can improvise a little bit, they can get nutty and really have fun. instead of, well, let's play this Zeppelin song exactly right. You
like
know,
this. Yeah. Here's
exactly.
here's the solo. Here's this. Here's that. Yeah. There's avenues for expression and to kind of get an experience that goes beyond just playing the cover band set. Right. I
Totally.
mean,
Yeah.
ideally, because it's like we've all played in bands where it's like, all right, I don't know what happens here, but I'm gonna make a weird noise. You're gonna do your thing, and I guess we'll
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's it's so funny that would be Gibby Haynes, because Butthole Surfers is just not what I think of in the first name of children's entertainment. But that sounds awesome. And Victim's Family, it's always a treat to see when they play. You know, what a fantastic band.
Yeah.
I guess that's as good a place as any. I've seen Rubber Snake Charmers now, which was fantastic. That was great. I super enjoyed seeing it. I was only dimly aware of it until recently, and I think it's kind of an interesting aesthetic. So, how did Rubber Snake Charmers come together? It was around before this recent Australian tour and all that, right?
It's been going since 2012. I guess was the first. I had to. When I wrote the bio for like we're out gigging now, which was not the intention, it wasn't the intention, but so I've always been found musician. I don't know why I tend to attract musicians, comfortable improvising even on very primitive level, you know, like I've just always been around guys like that. I grew up with guys like that in the desert. My cousin, my friend Gary, my friend Tony, all the guys that I play with are comfortable with jamming.
Right.
When I was living in LA, you know, I had Fatso Jetson going, I had Yawning Man going, and those bands were working and doing stuff. But I just had an opportunity. I think it started with, I was working at Coverside Distribution, and they're a vinyl record distribution warehouse in Glendale, LA area. And I was coordinating an open house once a month there where we would have live music, open the warehouse for people to pick vinyl. And I'd cook hot dogs and burgers, and we'd have a big trash can full of beer, and the food was free, the beer was free. They'd come and hear some music for free, and then we'd sell some records, you know. And it was really great because they could an action house, which was rare. So in coming up with entertainment for that, obviously we booked all kinds of different bands. I could go on and on about the different bands that have played there. Great bands. But did you ever do one of those?
No. I know I knew about them, but I'm it's the stuff of legend for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, it was great. And one of those I said, well, I'm just going to call some friends. And I think that day it was like Joe Biza on guitar. It was Vince Maroney on saxophone. And my son was playing bass. I was playing guitar, Tony Tornay on drums. And I invited a poet from Los Angeles who is a big inspiration on, I met him through Jack Brewer, and I'm embarrassed. I'm spacing out on his first name, but I invited him to come and do some spoken word while we improvised. So that was the first show, but it was nothing unusual for me. I've done that kind of stuff all my life. And then we did, the next time I did it, it was at a bar in San Pedro. We were playing with some people, it was like Hurley's band or something. And I booked it again, but I chose different guys. Then we did a Cafe Nela, another club there, and I chose different guys. So every time it would be like, I've had everybody from guys guys from Dead Meadow to Alan Johannes. I've had all the musicians that I play with, like all the Yawning Man guys, Bill Stenson, Gary, all the Fatso guys, like everybody at one point. Anyway, the idea was book a show, show up, jam out, and that's it. There's no preparation, there's no rehearsals, there's no stuff like that, and it's always musical. It's not a noise fest. It's not just like blah, chaos, open faucet shit. But
that's an important distinction, because I think with some similar exploits, it really is just like, hey, we're gonna go make a bunch of racket, and it's not that at all. Even a little.
No, it's not that. It goes there, but so that because it's musical, it had legs for me, and the noise thing gets boring really quick. Like I love exploding and open faucet vomiting with an instrument, any kind of instrument, especially when I don't really know how to play.
Oh, that's the best kind to do it with. Yeah.
Like I tried saxophone for a couple of years, and that was like all I could do was just blurt, you know?
Yeah.
But so but you know, I learned to do this stuff from guys like Joe Baiza. And you know, Joe Baiza taught me so much. I'm so in debt to him. He's one of my mentors and one of my biggest influences. And not just stylistically, but his open mind and his taste influenced all aspects, whether it was artistic or technique or specifically musically, of what to listen to and who to listen, but mostly the freedom of expression when you're on stage, no matter where. If you're at a coffee house or on a corner or out in the desert, a generator park, whatever, just to fucking express, you know. And that I learned that from those guys. So like when I was a kid, I first moved up to LA when I was 18, and I moved there for a couple of years. We were going to try to live in the city and like get a gig at a club, and one of our Scott Reeder was in school at UCLA. He was a music major. He had a really good thing going there. He was a music major. He was, you know, first tier in the orchestra and played trombone. And we fucked that all up with our rock and roll shit, but we did. It was so fucked. But when we moved up there, the first people we met.
This is across the river. This is across the river that you're talking about.
Well, it was originally who moved there was Dead Issue. It was me.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was me, Alfredo Hernandez, Scott Reeder, and Herb Leno. And I still play with Herb. He plays in the Rubber Snake Charmers. But we moved up there, and the first people we met were the guys from SST, and we met the Red Cross crew, which was like Jeff and Steve. Yeah, we met those guys, and but mostly the people that were like Jordan Schwartz, who was also worked for SST at the time, his sister Jennifer, Dave Markey, and my dear friend Mike Glass from Sen 34, and Dave from Sen 34. So we knew those guys kind of from the desert. So when we moved up there in '84, we immediately went, "Oh, we're here now. Come over and let's have a beer and smoke out and listen to records." So as our best friends up there, we're all affiliated with the scene. So one of the first shows I went to when I actually lived there, was October Faction and Painted Willie at Phil Newman's studio. And Phil Newman, God rest his soul, he passed away, but he had an incredible recording studio. It was a little hotbed of cool stuff going on there. And we sat on the floor in the live room and we watched October Faction. And I was like, October Faction, if you don't know, is members of Black Flag and Saccharine Trust, and it's completely improvised music. And they put out a record and they did some touring and mostly local gigs in LA and around that area. But
yeah, they had a tape, I remember, because that was like Dukowski, Yin, and Joe, and
right.
I can't remember, but like that was also around the same time that Saccharine Trust did the one that has Peace Frog, right?
Yeah.
That's around that same time.
Yeah.
What a crazy time to be there too. So you're vibing on all that, right? Like you're
yeah, I was like, holy shit, this is, I mean, I was coming from hardcore punk scene at that time. You know, I wasn't listening to jazz, even though my uncle had a jazz club. And I wasn't listening to stuff where there was a lot of improvising other than Jimi Hendrix and the classic rock guys that would go off, Allman Brothers. And the 60s stuff I listened to was acid rock. So it was like there was a lot of jamming going on, but a little different than in the Grateful Dead, of course. But it was a little different than I got into the Dead after this. So it was like I got into all this improvised music kind of like way after this exposure to October Faction and these guys that were like all those guys were comfortable just going off.
Yeah.
And Greg and Joe. And I would say,
I mean, you can argue that that's Greg's whole guitar style, right? Was just going off like the
I'd argue that it definitely was, but there was a thread that he clung to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was weird. It was like Chuck Berry it was like backwards Chuck Berry on acid.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite guitar players of all time, no shade at all, but but yeah, especially around that period where he's starting to get into to do more like free music and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Go off King for sure. Anyway, go ahead, please.
Long story to tell you where the Snake Charmers came from, but this is it's a natural thing for me, and it's a beautiful thing for a musician because I love to work on music. I love to write music. Yeah. I love to rehearse music. I love to refine it and tweak it, and I love all that stuff. And I'm not, but this other thing, this freedom, this spontaneous presence that you have when you're improvising is just amazing. It's not always like a meditative experience, but a lot of times it is. I feel differently when I'm done with that explosion than I did when I started. And sometimes it doesn't go so well because you're kind of connecting with other people, and the last few times I've done it, I've expanded it from like 4 or 5 of us to like 9 or 10 of us, and there's so much going on that if one of those people isn't a listener and they're just going blah 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 blah
it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Nobody does that. Like everyone, they do. I mean, everyone, all of us do it to a certain extent because there's so much sound going on, and we're not fucking Miles Davis, So it's like we are just punk rocking it through this thing, but it's like meaning it's pretty primitive, but it's beautiful, man. And to actually get out in front of people and tour it, like that is crazy because you play in front of people that have no idea what it is or what to expect. They have no song they're waiting for or anything. Yeah. And you get up and do this thing. And Sean Wheeler.
Sean's amazing. He's
he takes it to a whole different level. Like we support him.
Yeah.
and he's doing these writings and poems from this book he did with this artist, Otis Link from the desert, actually from LA, now lives in the desert, but famous guy in the punk scene. He did a lot of the classic imagery for the poster bills and cover art. He's an amazing artist. I love him to death, and he plays sax with the band too. It's so rad because we can in this thing that is this. It's fun. It's like having all your friends going surfing. Let's all surf and then have a barbecue. It's like that, but it's music. It's just and the fact that that we've gotten it to a place where it's kind of musical enough where we could support like a real structured band and entertain, which is not the point. Like, we are not concerned with entertaining people.
No,
we do sense if people are like bummed, it's not going to make me happy. But I'm kind of like, my eyes are closed through the whole thing usually, so I won't know until it's over anyway. But anyway, it's been fun. Yeah. It's been really fun.
But it seems like it scratches a totally different itch than like writing songs, like writing and arranging and recording songs in Fatso Jetson, and like it's a totally different skill set. It's a totally different presentation. But it's it's very moody, but it's very unexpected. But I can see. I mean, is there a thought towards like, sometimes you capture lightning in a bottle and it's just gone for forever, or you just have to like let go and be like, that's what part of the process is?
Yeah, we've gotten caught in that trap. We have a live recording that we did in Melbourne. And we played at a guy's, he set up a nice show, big show, at his studio. And his studio's kind of like a compound. It's got a rehearsal space, 2 or 3 rehearsal rooms, and it has like a live room that holds about 150 people. And then it has a recording studio. And he set up and he plays in a band. His name's Andy. He plays in a band from Australia. And they set up this show with full video capture and 24-track recording, I think, 16-track. So we got this great recording and we're listening to it. Like, the idea was I took a hard drive. It was kind of like the Dead tapes, it's like,
right. Yeah.
we took a hard drive to every show, hoping they'd have a console that would be able to format to the hard drive. And that happened rarely, but out of the 13 shows, we got about 5, but this one came out really good. And he sent me a rough mix. I'm listening to it, and there's like these spots where I like the bass and the drums and the guitar are doing this certain interplay that was so great. Yeah. And I can't remember, I'm thinking, I can't remember what we were playing. So I'm trying to go back and relearn it.
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea, because this could start, like, if I start introducing structures and disciplined structures to the set, like I say, okay, well, tonight, guys, I want to open with this thing. Here's the riff. It fucks the whole, it screws up the whole. It messes up everything.
Yeah.
It screws it up, man. It there's nights where Wheeler he'll have an off night. I don't usually notice it, but Sean is really sensitive. And there's one thing I got to say. It's one thing to play the drums, the bass, or the guitar all night, riffing and doing weird stuff. But to be on a microphone, to have to say words, that's a completely different thing, and it's really hard.
Well, luckily he's a guy that seems like he was like born to be on stage, though, to a certain degree. Like it seems to come so natural to him. He just has that.
It does, and that's he can say nothing, absolutely nothing, and entertain the fuck out of people.
Yeah.
He's incredible at that, and he loves it. So he's very physical, and he's amazing to watch. His energy is insane, and it's real. And I'm honored to do stuff with him in that regard. But it's a whole nother thing when you record stuff, then you don't have that electricity of a live show, and it's like boom and it's over. The spontaneity, by recording it, it becomes something that can be heard over and over, and you analyze it. I don't have time to analyze shit. When we play a set, it's done, it's gone, it's lost to the air, as you said, or lost to the sound waves. But when you record it, then it's like, oh fuck, man. So this recording, the first 10 minutes I want to take off, because I do this thing on an iPad. I'm like doing this like it's kind of like an Eastern flute or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And I fuck it. I mean, it's just so bad. I hit all these weird notes, and it's so bad. And I swear to God, that night, I don't remember any of that. Like, I remember it just being amazing.
Sure, because you're in the moment. I
listened back, and I was like, oh my God, this sucks. So
it's like Heisenberg syndrome, right? The act
totally
of something changing.
So I turned it on. I was like, fuck it, we're editing that. And it was funny. I sent the recording to Sean to kind of analyze, and he's like, yeah, dude, we need to take it to like 9 minutes and 45 seconds in. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Right past all that terrible keyboard shit I did. But it's, I don't know. I lost track, but yeah, it's been a wonderful thing. And all of us,
they're all people you've played with. They're all people that like are similarly like-minded. They're like coming from a different same sort of place, and they're not going to be sitting there overplay. They're not going to be sitting there. Oh, it's my opportunity to look at me. You know.
No. None of us are real soloers. None of us even know how, really. I mean, we like, so it like we're all primal players, so it ends up being kind of that way, which is a good thing.
Well, and for me, it kind of scratches the same itch as I don't know if you're a David Lynch fan or not, but
absolutely.
Like I love what he did with like this roadhouse that's in this like Pacific Northwestern logging town where they just have like the weirdest music playing possible, and everyone's like, oh cool, right on. And I love it. It kind of evokes those same vibes to me. Where,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say where there's almost this kind of horseshoe effect where if you get far away from people trying to be cool, that like people get more receptive in a lot of ways to just stuff that's unexpected or different.
Yeah, that's funny you met. Yes, absolutely. I agree. It's funny you mentioned that scene, those scenes, and that one of my favorite pieces of music from that whole series is that dirge blues. It's like cellos detuned.
Oh yeah. Oh, so good.
Fucking insane.
I know
exactly from that Roadhouse.
Yeah.
It's that Roadhouse. Yeah. I was like, whoa, and his taste in music is insane. I mean, it's like really great. It's great.
I guess I'm literally wearing an Audrey Horne shirt. I didn't think about it at the time. But, yeah. but it occurs to me that it has a similar vibe to that, right? Where there's a kind of a deep pull, but you don't quite know where it's going to go next, and which makes it so unexpected. But then also, we live in a world of like press sheets and like Instagram reels and stuff like that. So how do you keep something? How do you keep the mystery and keep the original conceit of it, if you will, true, while also existing in a world that is almost designed to completely destroy mystery?
I don't know. It's like different every night that we do it. I mean, for instance, like this, well, I mentioned that, we tour when we tour it, it does become the patterns become evident. The things we go to in the set, they never resemble a song ever, but the patterns of groove and the patterns of the spoken word stuff, where he's drawing from the book, the Dry Heat book, by the way, it's called Dry Heat. And so those patterns becoming, when you're touring it every night, you start to land in places the same night, or the same places each night, which is okay. But we don't plan it. We don't go, okay, we're going to start with this and we're going to end with that. We just kind of go there. And I'll call keys sometimes. I'll go, okay, we're going to start in D, then we're going to go to A, then we're going to go to E. And I control all that because I'm at the helm with the bass guitar, you know. So I control the keys, but not necessarily. I mean, it can change. That can change. My son likes to throw things at me where I have to adapt to what key the guitar is in, and I'm okay with that. But when we got home, when we were touring, it was me, Brant Bjork, Ryan Goop, basically the dudes from Stoner, and Brant Bjork's band.
Yeah.
And Nick Oliveri even jumped up on
Was
stage.
he in another band? I wasn't aware. No kidding.
Yeah, Nick jumped up. He played some keys. He mostly did. He was a great sport. He did vocal stuff, like just off the top of his head with Wheeler. He would back up what Wheeler was doing. He'd do these chants and weird sicko whispers and stuff, and it was fucking great. And he just wanted to be involved. And I was, I regret on the tour I didn't just give him the bass and I just fucking pick up the guitar or something, because we could have done that too. It hit me like later. I'm like, you should be playing the bass. But anyway, when I got home, I immediately called like Janet Houston. She plays electric violin. You may know Janet, played drums in Red Cross.
Yeah.
And she's in some other stuff now, but playing the violin or the fiddle. And so she has been involved the last couple times we've played. 3 times she's done it. She did New Year's Eve. She was awesome. My friend Herb Leno from Dead Issue, a teenage punk band buddy, he's got a crazy thing, this concept he does by himself called Herbert, and it's inspired by the organ or the piano players at Shakey's, the old
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's like that, but a Nightmare Bad Acid Trip version of that.
Wow.
So he's dressed like the old what do they call those guys? Not a Nickelodeon, but imagine, like, we'll call it a Nickelodeon player, or the old piano player, like, don't shoot the piano player, with the spittoon next. That's the idea at Shaky. So you walk in and they're like playing ragtime, straw hat, the vest, the things on his shirt.
Yeah.
And you get your pizza.
Yeah. Delicious.
Yeah. I've been dreaming of opening a pizza place. And if I do, I'm going to have one of those guys.
Oh, man.
Herb, I'll give Herb. He owns a Murphy bed business. I'll tell him, get rid of the Murphy bed business. You can play piano at the pizza parlor every night, and it'll be fucking.
This is your new career,
yeah. But anyway, so I call him, and he's got a Korg micro synth, which makes every weird ass fucking sound you can imagine. Just the craziest weird psychedelic space age shit, but it's tuneful. Yeah, he plays that, and then I had my son on guitar, and he has a pedal that can go from guitar to bass. It's like, so he'll do that in the context, and then I had Dave Travis on electric cello, and what else? Oh, and a dude on percussion, Jared Elliott, So the band that toured, when the first show we had at home was a completely different band. And the music was completely like, it was way massive orchestra.
Yeah.
And it was a cacophony. It was a little bit, it was a lot of sound to take in.
Yeah.
Okay, in small doses. So it's like 30-minute set.
Right. You don't want 2 hours of it.
We did our yah-yahs. But what holds it all together and what gives it structure is Sean. Sean conducts us. We come on, and then he brings us down. He lays out some poem, and then we react to it. And it worked. It's been working, man. I mean, I can't remember a night where I went, oh my God, that was like pulling teeth. Never. It hasn't happened.
Right.
And that's just me. I don't know. Maybe in the audience. I had one guy come up to me in Vegas. So we played this barbecue place. We opened for Stoner. Okay. And I had fun. I thought it was a great set. And one guy came up to me and I was putting my bass away and he patted me on the back. He said, dude, that was rad, man. I never seen anything like that. I was like, thank you. Thank you. And there was another guy coming behind him and I was still putting my stuff away. And the guy walked right up to me and and he had heard what that guy said.
Yeah.
And he's all, dude, that was awful. He's all, that was awful. I didn't know what to expect, but that was fucking awful. And I was all,
Jesus.
right.
Was he
right on? No, he wasn't. Just a Vegas like stoner rocker. And he's probably a huge Caius fan or a fan of Brant and Nick. And he's just like, that sucked. And I was like, good. That's good. I'm glad that the dude was honest and that like,
you got a reaction. It may not have been like a good reaction, but you got a reaction, you know.
I know that to your average like rock listener that needs a song with a verse and a chorus and a guitar solo, this shit is going to drive you nuts. It's going to be like, check, please. I'll be at the bar, you know?
Yeah.
And when Fatso Jetson first started, I had this Roland keyboard that I bought because it had all these nightmarish looping, cycling sounds on it. Like it sounded like a computer burning up and going haywire and then just exploding. You know, and I used it just for that. And we do these jams, these nightmare kind of Butthole Surfers-esque, like not noise jams, but just dark, weird jams. And I'd have this thing going crazy through it, you know? And it would I'd look up sometimes and the bar would be clearing or empty. Well, there's only 20 people there to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I started coining it as bar clearing music. And I thought that's, you know, like it was like the Alligator Records house rocking music, you know. This is bar clearing music.
It's bar clearing music is what it is.
Yeah, it's self-indulgent. What musician hasn't experienced self-indulgent fun shit? You know, it's like. Anyway.
I mean, there's plenty of great examples of that, and I have a friend's band who they played just the intro to Six Pack for 15 minutes, and then they played 5 seconds of the beginning of every one of their songs in order, and that was the set. And
that's right.
And a friend flew in from like East Coast or something to see them play. That's the show they saw, which I was like, well,
you're still talking about it though, right?
Talking about it. I was like, I mean, in a way, like, I just went on.
I'm gonna rip that off, dude.
It's such a good bass line, and it's like it was like that that shellac song that Didn't We Deserve a Look at You, where he's do 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 do, and it does that for like just forever. It was like
15 minutes, yeah.
It was pretty stunning, frankly. But I mean, but there's something to be said for those kinds of moments, right? Where it's It's not going to be a crowd pleaser. It's maybe going to antagonize a few people, but it's art. Art
It
is supposed
is
to
art.
be reaction, right?
That cyclical repetition thing. One of the most effective, amazing performances I saw. Now, granted, this was the scene of this performance was fucking magical. It was my son's first tour. I took him on. He's 16 years old. I pulled him out of school to go to Europe for a couple weeks.
Hell yeah.
And Fatso Jetson. And our first show was at Duna Jam. And Duna Jam is basically a week-long generator party in Sardinia. And Sardinia is an island off the coast of Italy that is absolutely magical. It's a very rustic, very wholesome, rustic culture. And the coastline is incredible. It's like the desert. The beauty of the desert meets the beauty of the ocean. No shit. It's like take the most bitchin' desert scene you've ever stood in and went, wow. And then being at a beautiful beach and going, wow. And then combine those two things. And like it's just everything. So you have this, imagine you're at a beach cove with a huge sand dune, hence Duna Jam. And Fatso played with, and there's probably about 20 bands that are involved in this thing. And it's kind of a secret. I'm not even supposed to be talking. It's kind of a secret. That's all I'll say.
Okay, fair enough.
It was beautiful and amazing. But one of the bands that played after us, it was right as the sun was going down into the dark. And it was a band called Circle, and they're from Finland.
Yeah, Finland. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Okay, so Circle is this prolific fucking band. Like, you think the OCs put out records?
No, they have
these guys put out like 20 records in the space of a year. And the band, they had two bands playing this festival. I'll call it a party festival. It was called Pharaoh Overlord. Was one band.
Okay.
All the same members, but a totally different concept and a totally different body of music.
Sure.
But the same members. But Circle played this specific night. They played one song for an hour, and it was basically a riff.
Yeah.
Nothing really complex. But imagine like a heavy King Crimson, like one of Crimson's heavier riffs, but not some like technical mind-blowing, like what it was just kind
like
of
21st century schizoid man or something where they
not even that swinging. Like it had like these 4-5 steps in it, and they played it over and over and over, the exact same inflection, zero dynamics, monochromatic, like a solenoid. It was just fucking rigid, and they started it and they stopped it on a dime, and they played that fucking thing for an hour. It started to literally, like, here's how people reacted. 20 minutes in, people were like, still doing this.
Yeah.
And then like 30 minutes in, people were like looking at each other going, what the fuck?
What's happening?
45 minutes, people started cheering like, holy shit, yes, you guys are insane. How the fuck are you doing this?
Yeah.
And an hour, it was like people's minds were blown. It actually started to fuck with me, man. I was like it started tripping me out. They had a mental effect on me. But the cool thing was, I can't show you. While they were playing it, like here's the guys, they're standing in the sand.
Yeah. And
they would slowly, like this slow, they're playing this riff. They'd slowly go down, this slow, slow, down to their knees. Then one knee, then they'd stand back up. And they did that. They must have done it 30 times in the span of the hour, up and down. Just down to their knees and then back up again. I mean, I was just like, these guys are fucking. But that
next level stuff there.
Yeah, that cyclical thing that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, blah blah.
No. That's. I mean, that's. I have a lot of time for that. I mean, I think even about I love Echoes by Pink Floyd, but like just the where it's like there's a certain point where you're like, oh, this is cool, and being like. And you kind of your mind sort of wanders like, oh wow, yeah, I guess this song's still going on, and then that kind of comes back, and I'm a big fan of that kind of thing.
Me too.
Autobahn, Kraftwerk, that's another good example. But you mentioned Fatso Jetson. It'd be disingenuous not to talk more about Fatso Jetson because I mean that's the band I kind of most associate you with.
Awesome.
And I'm a big fan of everything you did.
Thank you.
Was it 95 that was the first record that came out around that neighborhood?
Yeah, the band formed in 94 at my pizza rock and roll club in Indio. Yeah. 95 we put out our first record. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems to me that there's a very defined voice to what Fatso Jetson does, but also a lot of room to kind of explore. Like there's a lot of heavy Devo kind of action. Is the best way I can put it. But you don't limit it just to like any like one thing necessarily. And I mean, there to me, there's like some of the stuff the Minutemen does, right? Like Minutemen, and like there's elements of that without necessarily even sounding like the Minutemen. And what led you to start Fatso Jetson? Because that's post it's post Yawning Man, right? If I'm getting my timeline correctly.
It was Yawning Man turned into the Sort of Quartet.
Yeah, they kind of
So the Sort of Quartet, it was Yawning Man, but we just changed the name. The Sort of Quartet was active when Fatso Jetson came to be. Fatso Jetson came to be because I was working every night at my club with my cousin. He was in the kitchen tossing pizzas, and I was out front running the bar and the sound. And then we had a place called Rhythm and Brews in Indio, and we missed playing, man. We were just like, fuck. I mean, the Sort of Quartet was still playing. We were doing some gigs at the club, and we were running up to Al's bar and playing like anti-club and shit. But it was just like only on weird nights where we could get away from the club. It was hard, It was like
it's a lot to
the restaurant business and being in a rock and roll band, or a nightclub business and being in a rock and roll band. It's funny because most musicians work at bars and stuff.
Right.
I don't know. I don't get it because it's like, I got a gig on a Saturday night. Yeah, but I could have made $200 bartending.
Right. You're gonna make like $20 instead playing the show.
Yeah, exactly. Spend $200.
Yeah, exactly.
But we missed it, and we met my buddy Tony. God bless him. He came to that fucking club every single night. Every night. As a matter of fact, I owned and operated it, and he was there more than me because I took a family vacation to Santa Fe to see my sister. I wanted to take my parents to see my sister, and we met in Santa Fe, and I took a weekend off, and it was a terrible weekend to take off, and I'll tell you that story. But Tony was there, and I was gone, and at the end of this 2-year run. It was only open for 2 years, but at the end of the 2-year run, we were talking. I was making our closing night poster, and it was a big tombstone.
Yeah, that's good.
And it had on the tombstone, it had every single band that played. Okay, it said "Rest in Peace," Rhythm and Blues, and then all the bands that performed. And I had music 5 nights a week, so it was fucking pretty. There was
a lot of them. Yeah, I was gonna say probably a pretty big poster.
It was a lot. Yeah. And he's like, dude. And that night he's like, dude. We started talking, and I was looking at this show. It was like Bikini Kill and Fits of Depression and the Tourette's, and he's like, yeah, man, God, that was insane dealing with Kathleen Hanna. She was crazy. She was so fucked. And we went on and on. And I was like, dude, I wasn't there. You were there. That means that you were at the club every single night more than me. Like, he never missed a night that place was open. He was there. So anyway, we started. Yeah, we started jamming, and he put his drums up at the end of the night. You know, we'd wrap things up late, and he'd throw his drums on stage, and my shit was already there. I kept my shit there because we could rehearse at the club for free. It was awesome. We had a PA, and
yeah, you got a nice
and a cold keg, and fucking, cold pizza in the fridge. I mean, it was the most awesome thing. And pool tables, and what's not to love? I lived there. I fucking lived there, dude. I got up in the morning, kids went to school. I was at the club until 3 a.m. every fucking night. And I was there with Tony and Larry, and we were jamming. If we weren't jamming, we were playing pool. If we weren't playing pool, we were watching Twilight Zone on the tube and throwing back beers. And it was like, we just, we've been buddies, dear friends ever since, man. We've always been tight, and that's how Fatso started,
And he's such a monster drummer too. I mean, what if
yeah, I mean, he's badass.
It's just something that it kind of seems like the different territory that you mine in that band, though. Like, there's a through line through all of it, but there isn't a lot of repeating yourself either. And is that just a natural outgrowth over the years of how things have gone, or were you purposely trying to?
We went through a well, I appreciate that you see that in us. That's that makes me happy. But
I'm a picky master too.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. There was a period, especially when I lived in LA and running a restaurant.
Yeah.
That the band, and I even, I invested in a studio. I built a studio in a warehouse space. I built a really nice little recording studio with my friend Matthias Schneeberger, who's recorded all kinds of, like, many of Lanigan and Greg Dooley's records.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
were recorded at that studio. But it was just fucking hard, man. And so we ended up, like, we were playing the same set all the time, and I went through a period where I was just happy just getting together with my family and playing, but writing and rehearsing, and it was hard, man. And so we went through a kind of a dry period there. But once I moved home, it's funny, when I moved 2 hours away from everyone, like, then, but I didn't have the restaurant anymore. And I started writing a lot more for Fatso Jetson, but all that music's still sitting. Like, we haven't recorded it. We've recorded some of it, very little though. It will happen. So we did a couple splits, and the split only had 2 new songs on it, and had 2 that we never got a chance to properly record. But to answer your question, or to give you an explanation, I I'm inspired by the music I listen to.
Yeah.
And I have this music that plays in my head, and the two things come together in some weird way. And one, like last year I was listening to a lot of new bands. Like I really got into this band Dive. There's the guitar. Do you know them? DIIV. DIIV. They're kind of a young, you call it, I guess, if you want to pin it, you call it shoegazy or whatever. But and they're a popular band, but the guitar playing is amazing. I saw them open for some band they didn't fit with at all. I was managing Pappy and Harriet's.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you did that for a while. Yeah.
A roadhouse up here in the high desert.
Great spot.
Place. Great spot to hear live music. But anyway, and so I started listening to these guys, and the ideas, they play kind of clean jazz master tones and very chimey, very melodic, very beautiful. A lot of beauty in their music, a lot of drama, and I influenced by it, and I write stuff in that vein. So, and then the next, the year before that, I was listening to a lot of like Delta, contemporary Delta blues artists, like, juke joint musicians that are just tearing it up with duos and little trios and a lot of slide guitar but whatever it is, it's like if it moved, or Wilco. I went through a phase where I was just Tweedy's music was resonating with me, it doesn't, I don't know, it just goes in all different directions, but it's just good. I like it because I like being inspired and influenced by other musicians. I don't pretend that like, ooh, I have some special thing that's unique and I'm unique and I'm only I can do. I revel in expressing through other people's inspiration and stuff. I love that. I like to express myself, so naturally it comes out in a way that my own little thing on it. But it's good. It's healthy for me, and I really enjoy discovering new music, man. It's like I have my go-tos all the time. When I was a kid, I loved this and I love that, and that shit will always be with me. Just today I was playing bass at rehearsal, and I was like, what is this? What does this remind me of? And I couldn't decide if it was Cheap Trick or Aerosmith, but it was definitely one of the two.
Right. I've actually seen those bands play together, and it was a pretty great show, honestly.
Oh, rad.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, every time I write a really fantastic riff, I'm always convinced it's stolen. I'm like, I stole that. And then I'll be like, wait, no, I don't think I did. And then I'll be like, no, I had a weird memory of like that being this, but like I've remembered it completely wrong and it's totally different. But every time I've come up with like a really, really great riff, I've that has to be somewhere else. That has to be. There's no way I came up with that.
Oh, I mean, you'll hear in my songs Greg Ginn all the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You'll always hear D Boon. You'll hear Jim Thompson from the Mermen.
Oh, yeah, Mermen. Yeah.
You'll hear like I almost, I don't know, Joe Perry.
Yeah, but it sounds like you though. That's the thing. And so that's
all these weird things that
and it's notable because I think that there's, and this is frequently comes up on this show, but I mean it kind of used to be that like back in the day, if you sounded like another band, you kind of get clowned on. You'd be like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I think there's this kind of newish trend where kids are just sort of like, I want to play this. So I'm going to play this. And that's cool. But I mean, it used to be like, yeah, if you dared sound like another band, like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing, you clowns? Get it together. I have that record too, bro.
Yeah. It was so weird in the punk scene how the idea, the principles, we'll call them.
Yeah.
The principles of punk rock was expression, you know?
Yeah.
Now, whether it was through fashion or whether it was through music or art or whatever, what I got was expression. And what, you know, the go-to with punk rock was shock. You shock people with your crazy haircut or your you know, the pin through your nose or the tattoos or the whatever, the fuck you, the swastika on the shirt or whatever it was like, ooh, shock, you know. But when all that bullshit kind of fell away, the principle of punk rock was there. And the principle of it was expression. And you don't need to have the secret key of knowledge to express yourself. You can express yourself without any of that. You don't need to know how to do stuff. You can just express yourself. And if you do that enough, pretty soon you'll know how to do something, which is express yourself. And,
exactly. Yeah,
right? And not care. So it was really an interesting learning ground for that, but it also created a lot of bullshit, and it created a lot of rules and conformity. And so there was two schools. It was like when English punk came over, and I don't mean the Sex Pistols, I'm talking about the second wave of English punk rock, like GBH and Discharge and like the high fashion era, some badass music. I'm a fucking huge fan of a lot of that music, and it was a huge influence on me. And I gooed my hair up, and I had a leather jacket with spikes in it and the whole fucking thing. But all that bullshit aside, there became these two. I started to become torn about something, and I know I'll go back to the SST guys for teaching me this, that the true expression has nothing to do with all that, even though you can express yourself through fashion. But is it really expressing yourself if you look exactly like the other 100 people at the club? Are you really expressing yourself? I don't know. If your band sounds just like GBH and Discharge and Vice Squad, are you expressing yourself, or are you just accomplishing fitting in, which was the whole point of punk rock? Was you don't need to fit in. I don't want to fit in. This boring 70s radio rock is driving me fucking nuts. I'm tired of all this shit. I want to do something. Like the whole everything, people just gravitate. It's human nature, I think, to gravitate towards where they find comfort and acceptance. And as much as punk being like this expression of individuality and it became the most cookie cutter conformist, because it was so easy to conform, because it was so clear. Like when you look at, I'm going to use these guys as an example, but I don't mean to obsess on the SST thing. But look at Black Flag. Look at them as a punk band. You look at a picture of them. Now, if you had never heard them and you never heard of what they were, where they come from, and you looked at them and somebody said, that's a punk band, would you be able to imagine how they sounded at all? Would you look at them and go, fuck, it's going to be gnarly and heavy or whatever? You're just looking and go, well, okay, it looks like a couple kind of burnout guys and stoners, and maybe one guy that like goes down to the beach and eats pizza. And then the next frame is the Exploited. Now you look at the Exploited and you go, yeah, I can pretty much know
what that is. Yeah.
I pretty much know what that's going to sound like.
Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, totally.
So I got this thing in me of like, it's got authenticity. So I got this thing of like, authenticity is important. It's fucking important. And and I realized the reason that it's important is because it lasts and it becomes a meaningful thing in your life, and it becomes part of your principle. So it's not just something that is entertaining or passes the time or a hobby. It becomes part of your life, like raising your children or going to church or fucking whatever. It becomes this thing that you do because it's part of you and not just this, Anyway, I know that sounds lofty, but it's fucking true, man. And to go back to sounding the same or sounding different, you can overthink the sounding different thing to the point where it's not authentic. It may be different, but being different just to be different, if your heart and your mind really aren't there, that's
disingenuous. That's disingenuous in a different way.
It's not an expression. It's not honest. Maybe an honest expression is to sound just like Dive, or maybe to sound just like fucking the Beatles. Maybe that is where the guy's heart is, and that resonates with him. So be it. There's nothing wrong with that. But the desert was the worst for judging, and oh my God, we were all dicks. Everybody, I don't care. There's not one guy that isn't like guilty that I know in this fucking music scene of being a fucking snob when it comes to other bands and being jaded and like, oh, this isn't that, and blah, blah, blah. And Brant or Josh, I think Brant had a record called Punk Rock Guilt. And it's exactly what we're talking about. It was like you adopt this thing that to some people it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just it's another night at the pub, it's another night at the club. And one year it's country music and the next year it's punk rock and whatever it is. It's just a means of entertainment. It's a means of, but when you dive deep in it's this culture changes your life. It becomes something you adapt as a principle in your art, in your the way you behave, the way you
it's an ethos. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it just like fucking changes you. And I'd hope that comes out in music and stuff, but it's not about originality. It's not about like always sounding different or I've never heard anything like that before. I don't fucking care about that.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing. You'll always find something that's like, what is that?
That's how, when I first heard Tropical Fuckstorm, I was sort of like, what's happening here? And then like I just kept listening, and and then we were lucky enough to play with them, and then it was like, oh wow, it's even better live. And like they're just constitutionally incapable of doing anything other than their thing. And I love them for it. It's just it's perfect. And it's not like they're trying to like be as weird as possible. They just kind of like, that's what comes out, and I love it.
And their music is so like, it's so complex, and I can't even imagine them trying. Like it couldn't sound like that if they were trying to sound like that. There's no way. That's just it's evident that you're dealing with 4 unique individuals that are weirdos. They are weirdos and they're goofballs, and it comes out in everything they do. Their principle comes out in all that shit they do. And we got to say a prayer for them, because one of those girls has
Fiona.
She has
this, which is,
and I saw them announce they weren't going to make it over here, and she's going to go through some treatment and stuff, and young woman, going through that is a heavy duty. So so we'll send some good prayers and juju out.
Absolutely.
For her to be back on track.
Can you talk a little bit about, so we talked about Rhythm and Brews, right? And I'm fascinated also with Cafe 322. I never went, but I'm always interested when people from, for lack of a better term, the punk rock world, kind of take up what's like straight businesses, so to speak, or like businesses, and approach it from that way. What, because that came a little bit later, right? And how was that experience? How did you come to do that? How was balancing that in the music life?
Well, that, I told the story about rhythm and blues, and that my parents were always in the restaurant business.
So it's like a family thing then.
It was a family thing. My dad was an opera singer. My mom was an opera singer. My dad,
really? Wow.
And, my dad was from back east, and he had a career in an opera company. Now, opera careers are, they're very delicate things, because one, you have to have massive talent.
Yeah.
Not talent you learn. You have to be born with a certain thing to be an actual working opera performer. So it's a rare deal for someone to have an actual career in this. It's not like rock and rollers who can just go fuck off and get paid for it.
Yeah.
Seriously, no, it's gnarly. So my dad realized that he's a smart man. At a young age, he realized this thing ain't going to be around forever. But I love singing, and I love it so much. I got to figure out how I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. So an opera singer's career is usually from about 16 to 30. And if you're talented and uniform enough that you fit the bill for different roles that you audition for, which is, if they're looking for a skinny blonde and you're a heavy brunette, or if you're a portly tenor and they're looking for a skinny baritone, you're fucking out of luck, man. So he realized that, well, shit, if I want to keep singing, I'm going to have to create my own stage, Yeah. How the fuck am I going to do that? Well, he started working at 18 years old. He was working at a restaurant in New York City called the Asti. And the Asti was a famous piano bar. And it was famous because it was near Broadway and near the Met, in between, downtown. And the choruses, meaning the singers on stage at these performances, they would come in after hours. So performance would get out, they go, let's go get a drink, let's go to the Asti. The piano player could sight read anything. You put any fucking music in front of him, he could fucking play it. And these people would sing. They'd sing opera, they'd sing musical theater, blah, blah, jazz standard, whatever.
There's a place like that in Oakland called the Alley. This guy, Rod Dibble, he would always take off Christmas, but every other day of the year, he was there doing that exact thing. And you could be like, hey, I want to sing Under My Skin. Great. He's got it. He's going there. And it was amazing. And it was one of the last vestiges of old Oakland. The bar is still there, but Rod Dibble unfortunately passed on. But he only ever took Christmas off. He did every day for like 50 years or something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I can totally see it. Right. So that, I'm going way back, but there's a reason. There's a reason. So when he's about 21 years old, he had a partner, a running buddy, another singer, and he said, we gotta figure this out. We gotta get a place like this Asti place. And he had a little bit of cooking experience because coming from an Italian family,
it's hard not to.
Yeah. So they had taken a trip as singers. They had taken a trip to Aspen, And at the time, he's living in New York. They had taken a trip to Aspen, Colorado, and this is 1952. And he realized that this is a boom town. In 52, he could start to see that the ski industry was starting to, the resort industry, we'll call it, was starting to pick up there. He's like, if we're going to open a weird place like this is the fucking place to do it because it's super cheap. They had a great location in one of the only hotels downtown Aspen, and the big, beautiful saloon in the hotel was available. So him and his buddy got in a car that fucking drove to Aspen, and he just fucking went for it. And they opened this place. And it was called Mario's. And it was, my dad would be in the kitchen. He would be making pasta and come out and sing a song for you. And he discovered that now he had his stage. And as long as he could keep that fucking restaurant open, he could sing every night.
Right.
And the singing was always more important. My dad had great taste in food. The food was always great. The food was always good. And I'm not just saying that because he's my dad, but it was good. It wasn't some weird shit toss off. Like he knew he'd taken enough trips to Italy to know the difference between the kind of pasta that's prepared right and the pasta that they just dump the red sauce on top and the rest of it's sitting there dry, you know. But anyway, he knew the fucking difference. So it was always good. But it was just him and this guy and a bartender. And so it started picking up. And eventually he added 2 more singers, and then 3, and then 4. And eventually he had like 10 singers around a grand piano. By the time we moved to Palm Springs, I was born and big restaurant in Denver, moved to Palm Springs, and he bought the Chi-Chi Club in downtown Palm Springs in 1970. So the Chi-Chi Club its heyday was in the mid 50s and 60s. It was a fucking hopping place. You name it, they performed there.
Yeah, Palm Springs at that time, especially.
Yeah, it was an incredible place. But when we got it, it was a dump. It had its life, and it had shuttered, no ideas.
Yeah.
So anyway, this idea of like own the stage, fucking own it. You want to perform, you want to do whatever you want to do, own the stage. That was embedded in my head, and that's kind of how I ended up in the club business. Was I got in big trouble doing generator parties. The last one I did, people got seriously injured. There was it was a fucking mess. And I was out of my control, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any kind of safety measures. I had no first aid.
We're in the middle of nowhere, and
no toilets. It was so irresponsible and really fucking dangerous. And I got busted, and it was a good thing. And me and my cousin got busted. And after that, I said, that's it for me in this fucking shit. Because the generator parties are great. Tons of freedom, get out, do whatever the fuck we want. But there was no way to monetize it. It always cost me money, which I was fine with. We never paid bands. It was always just like everybody get together. And that was the beauty of it. God bless it. But fuck, we have to, and it's okay if I want to work 9 to 5, painting houses, and then go do a generator party on Saturday night. That's great. But I want music to be my life, I don't want to burn all my fucking energy like digging ditches and then go and and then with my last legs go play a show somewhere. But I also want to balance art and commerce. So I don't want my art to be the slave of the dollar either, because then it isn't art at all. It becomes a fucking whatever, and I can't play covers, man. I can't read. I don't know what key I'm in. I know 3 chords, So I got to find a balance. If Greg and Chuck can do it, if Ian can do it, if all the musicians around us that inspire us can do those things and make a living, then why can't I fucking do it too? Well, because I've always been in the restaurant and club business, fuck, man, you know what you know and you do what you do. So I always kind of gravitate towards putting on the show. And it's been hard for me to adapt to be the show, do this and write music, record music, take it on tour, release record. I do that. I'm not saying I don't do that. I do that. I've released a lot of music and I've done stuff, touring and stuff, but I don't know. I'll say it. I love it. I love hosting people and putting on a show and creating the space where people come to enjoy themselves. I fucking love that. And it's a form of expression too, man.
It is. And it's also a very specific set of skills that almost never gets shouted out. I will say, it's something that people don't accept by other people that do it. Gamer Smith Game, I knew long before you and I ever met, I knew about generator parties and stuff. And I was like, oh, you can just get a generator and go do that. And obviously there's more to it than just that. But when I started throwing DIY shows myself, I was like, well, as long as the cops don't bother you and as long as no one's going to get killed or, whatever, it's probably fine. Again, young man logic. Right. But, there is an art to it, to curating something to, people get mad at me when I say curating because it's supposed to be just art, but okay.
That's what it is.
But you know what it is? It's curation. It's
curation. You're procuring, you're selecting, you're presenting. That's curating.
And you match, you sequence things. Anyway, yeah, it is absolutely 100% an art.
Yeah. And yeah, so balancing that was hard. And I'm in that query. It's been hard all of my life. So Rhythm Brews, I had 2 bands going. The only time we ever played, with the exception of the random shows I mentioned, was at the club. But at least we had our own stage.
You had a place that you could do your thing.
Yeah. And just like my dad, I was just, instead of singing opera, I was playing punk rock, whatever the fuck. It was, It's I had a place, I had a stage. I could book us with whoever. I'd put us on bills with whoever I wanted. It was great. But, it was, and we had a place that was fruitful creatively because we had a place to rehearse. We had days free. I could get together. We could stay late at night. But when I went to LA and started running a real restaurant, not a rock and roll club, but a fucking restaurant with singers and, a staff of 30, that shit beat me up, man. And it took all the wind out of my creative stuff. And you can see it. You can see this lull where Fatso Jetson, we release a record and then nothing for 4 years. And we were playing the whole time. We were playing. I got Tuesday night off. Let's set up a show at the Handlebar in Pasadena or wherever the fuck the place is, at the Old Town Pub or whatever. We'd go play wherever, but it was nothing like being in a real. And like I said, I built the studio and tried to keep. So balancing those two things was really hard. And I was kind of a mess back then. I wasn't kind of a mess. It was a huge mess. I was a mess. So I wasn't in a fit mind, body, or spirit to handle two things that need a lot of love and care. So I just kind of tumbled through it. And but looking back, a lot of shit was done. We built a groovy place. We had a lot of incredible performances at our restaurant that I'm really proud of. And we provided work for all my family, literally all my family worked there.
Right.
My parents sang there on Sundays. My daughter sang there. My son performed there. He learned how to get on stage and perform there. And at the same time, we were building a recording studio with Schneeby and making incredible records there with all the artists I mentioned. Like, fucking great records were made there. So there's a lot of cool stuff happened, but it's like a lot of multitasking. It's hard to do a lot of stuff well. So it all kind of got done, but it was hard, and it was time to just focus on stuff, So, and it was difficult for me because, like, Yawning Man got offered his first tour of Europe while I had just opened the restaurant in Sierra Madre. And I just had to say no, I had to say, fuck, I can't go, man. And they're like, dude, it's our first fucking, come on, dude. I'm like, dude, I just opened this fucking restaurant. I can't go. So they got it. I got Billy Cordell, the guy who plays with them now. He went on the first tour. So there were sacrifices, it was difficult. But I love the club. I love the restaurant. And it was a thing I did with my cousin that was like, we dove in all in, and at the same time we were playing in the band together, and a lot of shit was happening, man. Like this music scene that me from, it kind of started exploding while that restaurant was happening.
Yeah.
And so we got like the spotlight on Fatso Jetson. Like, people actually knew who we were over in Europe and stuff because of like bands like Queens of the Stone Age and Caius and Queens. That's so fucked. That is so fucked. Queens.
It's the questioning Caius. It's
so there was like Queens. Dude, I gotta remember that. Okay, so there, like, this stuff was happening, but we couldn't do it.
Yeah,
because we just couldn't do it because they're like, no, we just opened a restaurant. You can't go fucking play.
You can't go run off on tour when you're
or even even go up to San Francisco and play a weekend. That was a big deal for us. And we got a show at Bender's. Was like,
oh yeah,
dude.
Bender shows are so
Jimmy
fun too.
Would always set us up, and that was a big getaway for us.
Yeah,
because I'd get the night off, Larry'd get the night off, we'd all jump in my van and go up there and play and drive home, and that was our big outing, But so yeah, it was difficult, and I know other musicians that dive into businesses. And it's funny that you bring this up because I've been working a lot with Brant, I tour managed his band, and now we're playing music together and stuff. And we're looking at this year coming up, and made a conscious decision. You made a conscious decision not to tour a lot. So work, like, what are we going to do for work? If there's no van to drive and there's no merch table to run, then what am I going to do? Now I'm a jack of all trades. Like, I'm a handyman. I can paint. I can fix stuff. I can like build. I can plumb. I can dig ditches. I can clean yards. There's a lot of shit I can do. But one of the things I really love to do is work in bars and restaurants and nightclubs because I know what I'm doing. I have a skill set for that.
Which is, it's always amazing me how many people do not. Where it's like, why do you act like this is your first time doing this? I
know, right?
You do, right? I mean,
so it's like, well, should I jump off and get a job? I was just talking to my dear Roberta today. I was like, I wake up in the morning thinking, I gotta fucking get a job, man. Like, should I get a job right now? Like a full-time job back at the grind? I'm like, no, let's keep doing so. I'm promoting some events here and there, but nothing regular. Like, I'm not, like, I set up a New Year's Eve show and now I've got 2 shows next month, and I've got a big festival in March. But I got to work, man, So and it's an interesting thing that you bring up. It's hard to balance. It's hard to balance. If you want to get serious about music, it's fucking hard to have a job.
Yeah, and you have to be very aggressive about carving out space to do it. Like, you have to want it. Like, you have to. It has to be important enough to you to really think ahead for it, and which rock and roll and thinking ahead is not always. They don't always match up, really.
I know. It's been a lifelong balance, and I've never been good at it, but shit got done. So I think these days what I'm learning is just let it be grateful.
Yeah.
About all the rad stuff that comes if you work at these little things here and there, and just let it be. And the next syndicated stuff will come when I got to pay some bill and I don't have the money to pay it.
Yeah.
I might have to go hustle, man. But right now I'm, things are okay. So
exactly.
Why be obsessed with changing that, but I'm always, I love that business, and I'm always dreaming about it. Like I'll pass a space that's for lease, and I'll be like, turn around, look through the window.
Go check it. And then you just gotta start seeing it.
The pizza oven could be there, the stage over here. And I'm always thinking of weird names for places and all that shit.
So a couple things, Mario. This has been awesome. I want to circle back a little bit, and I've had Dave on the show. It's been years, honestly. I should probably have him on again. And I'm very interested in the desert sessions that were there. And as someone who partook of those, could you tell me a little about that experience and what that was like? Because I think Rancho is a very special place, and those are very interesting records. And I think a lot of people, as you might imagine, people who listen to the show tend to be, a lot of them are creative, and I think it tends to be something that people love hearing about. So as someone that was there for some of it.
Yeah, Rancho de la Luna is very special. And what made it special, it always had this open vibe of anything's possible here. Anything's possible. My first experiences there was recording with Brant, and with Brant and Tony. And Tony Mason was the engineer there when it was just 16-track reel-to-reel. And I went there and played some guitar on, I think, the first few records Brant made there. He'd always call me to go up and jam on a song or two and sing. Then the Desert Sessions thing happened shortly after. It was like shortly after that. Same vibe. Show up with these, these friends of Josh's that were colleagues from relationships in music, and everybody get together, and kind of like the Rubber Snake Charmers idea. Since I went off on that for so long, if you take all that shit I said about the having that thing in common with people, that musical conversation that you have with like-minded musicians, well, that's what Josh did with the Desert Sessions, and it was also been my relationship with Brant too over the years. It was like there was this, like, we spoke the same language musically, but had totally different things to say. So getting together and doing stuff, it was easy. It was always easy, and I'm trying to remember the first, So when I showed up to the Desert Sessions thing, those guys were in mid-session and I was coming from work. So I had to get off work at the restaurant.
Sure, yeah.
And they were like, Josh was he was a lifer musician at that point. So he didn't have some day job to show up. His day job was music.
Yeah.
So he was at the studio all day tracking. That experience for most of the people involved, it was an immersive camp of creation, where for me, it was 3 hours that I got way too drunk. And no, seriously, dude, I'm credited on the vinyl as Boomer, vocals, guitar, and drinky poos. So I showed up,
yeah,
in my, fucking with an ice chest and vodka and orange juice and Red Bulls or something. I don't remember. And my drinking buddy. And the idea was pitched to me when I did a short tour with the Queens. I filled in for Dave Ketching.
Yeah.
And while we were on that trip, Josh said, the heavy metal animated movie Heavy Metal they're gonna redo this and they're gonna put us on the soundtrack. And they want us to write a song for this soundtrack. And let's do something together. Let's do that. Okay. So he started working on the music, which was Millionaire,
Sure. Yeah.
fucking driving badass hard rock song. And I was like struggling, I was going to write lyrics and sing on the song. And I was struggling thinking of a theme that fit this fucking movie. Anyway, that kind of all changed, but it was still there. That was kind of the thing in my mind, in the memory now, that like we're writing this song for this thing. But I remember I came in and I was sitting there. I had no lyrics prepared or anything. He's like, here's the track we're doing. Banana. And I was like, wow, dude, all right, that's fucking badass. All right, well, what am I gonna do? So I started drinking and thinking, and I had my pad, and I'm sitting on the couch at Rancho, and I'm just looking at all the fucking curios, all the shit that
there's a lot of stuff to look at.
A lot of stuff to look at. And the first thing I look at was there's this bull, this toreador sculpture from Mexico. Mm-hmm. It was a sculpture piece, something you put on your mantle. And the bottom was made of glass, and the top was bronze or something. And it was a toreador. It was a bull in full horn, in charge, and the toreador, And I was like, that's fucking rad. And it was plugged in, and it had like a light. It had a light glowing from the bottom and like cascading up onto the sculpture. And I was like, that's rad. So I'm going to write that down. I'll just write that. So I looked at that and I was like, Red Bull with the light from below. Not Red Bull the drink, but the bull, because the glass was red.
The color, yeah.
The color was cascading onto it. So I wrote that line, Red Bull with the light from below. And I was like, okay, what's next? And I looked down at my bottle and I was like, I'm fortified with the liquor store. And I was like, the bull again, give me Toro, give me Smart. Like I was just like the bull and being drunk and the shit on the wall at Rancho is basically what that song is about. It was just, that is it. And that was the nature of the collaborations of Desert Sessions, was get together there, exchange your musical communication. I'll throw out an idea. What's your response to that idea? And that's why those things are so fucking rad, because one, the curation of musicians was tastefully done. And all the people that Josh has been fortunate enough to work with, and because his talent is great, they work with him. And so, you know, he has good taste, and the people that were his friends in the early days that he was collaborating with or touring with, or, you know, he played in the Screaming Trees for a little while.
That's
so
right.
he knew all these fucking rad musicians from up in Seattle, and all that shit. You know, the relationship with Lanigan. Think of all the music that fucking spawned.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, man, it's magical stuff, man. You know, and those guys are all so pedal to the metal that something was bound to happen that was brilliant, you know? And so all that stuff, all the guys, I mean, fuck's sake, PJ Harvey's involved in that thing. You know, the people that are involved in those Desert Sessions, they're no joke. You know, these are some of the important artists of our time, you know, and so that was like in rock and our weird music scene. I mean, you know, so I'm really grateful to be part of it. But my part was a drunken stab, a jumping in the pool with these people that were immersed in this thing.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there listening to the music, and I was like, fuck, man, I wish I was here this morning so I could play guitar on that.
Yeah.
I wish I would. And once again, you know, I was like, I couldn't immerse myself because I was at the restaurant. I was making bread, you know, so it's a trip. But those Desert Sessions, they're amazing, and they are worthy of their legendary status, because Rancho is a magical place, always will be.
Yeah.
And Fred was a magical person that his vibe, what he set up there, what he created there, no matter who runs it or what, and Dave has done a wonderful job continuing that, because, you know, him and Fred were buddies and colleagues, and there's no better person. But it's just there's a spirit there that will always be incredible. But but back then it was like, fuck, man, like all those guys were just really hands-on, and it was a special place to do that. And I think that's why he continues to go back there to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. No, it's absolutely true.
Yeah. So but you know, I was part of two of them, and I just stuck my toe in, man. I stuck my toe in. I did the thing. There was one session that wasn't at Rancho. It was at Goss's studio, which was called Monkey.
Yeah.
And that was when he first, and that was the cool thing about that. It was the like, I witnessed the birth of the what I consider the real Eagles of Death Metal was birthed there in that studio during those sessions. And then the Eagles of Death Metal grew to be this insane live touring band.
This is big, yeah. That's like a big
Dave
live band.
on guitar,
yeah,
yeah. Which, you know, and they went through a lot of shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was an incredible session. Those Desert Sessions at that studio were fucking rad. there's a lost track from that session called "The Ambassador of Porn," and it was Fatso Jetson with Josh playing guitar. Yeah, so it was Fatso, it was me, Larry, and Tony with Josh playing guitar and me singing, and there was one track that we did 3 tracks. We did Eccentric Man,
the Groundhog Song. Yeah.
We did Eccentric Man, and we did Junior High Love. I think I played guitar on that, and we did some other punk rock song. But we did this song called "Ambassador of Porn," and it's fucking lost, man. We don't know where it is. We don't know what hard drive, but it was a badass song. Anyway, so that's all. But with the Desert Sessions thing, I wish I had more stories about all the guys and stuff. By the time I got there, it was like Dave and Tony and Josh and me and my friend Kevin, and that was it, man. And like, I wasn't there with everyone tracking, and I came and it was time for me to do my vocal, and I didn't have any lyrics prepared. My whole experience was like sitting there listening to the track. Those guys were making dinner. I was drinking and trying to come up with lyrics, and I love the way it came out. It was great. And the Queens ended up recording it, and it opened the songs for the Death
record, right? I mean,
I like it. I went to see them live when they were like kicking ass, you know, and they're always kicking ass, I guess. But you know, when they were, you know, headlining the Nokia Theater, and they opened with that song, I'm like, wow, or you know, and they closed with it or whatever, and it's so cool. It's really cool. But
so
anyway,
so real quick, because you've been very generous with your time. It's
awesome. I can imagine people are checked out on this. It's 2 hours.
No. It's a long form show, my brother.
Oh, okay, good.
I do want to talk about the live from the Total Annihilation.
Good.
Eddie is a friend and an old friend. He's actually been on this show as well. I used to play shows with Leopold a lot and Stored a Pony and all that since I came back. Really cool release, and I feel like it didn't maybe quite get as much attention because it kind of came out. There's a bunch of like releases that sort of came out during the COVID, and then people didn't really know what was going on, and et cetera, et cetera. But very good representation of both bands, I think.
Oh yeah, it was a unique experience, man. It was I'm like, man, should we have worn the masks? God damn it, you know, it's so weird. But but it was just the way it was at the studio at that time. It was just when stuff was still wasn't lifted completely.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, this is what's going on, so we're gonna wear the mask. And then that way it's kind of rad because we did make a video. The original idea was Meg and Tony came up with they wanted to do a live stream or some sort of something during COVID to stay creative. And they came up with the idea. So we did 2 sessions, one All Souls and one with Fatso. And we had 3 guys with cameras. We went to Eddie's studio, we set up, we got sounds, and we played 4 songs. And that was it. And the sound was so great that we decided to
sounds great. I think so, yeah.
We decided to pitch it to a label I've worked with Yawning Man called Ripple Music. Great, very supportive label. They're amazing, really cool people. And they were like, sure. So, you know, we pressed it up and made CDs and vinyl of it, and then now you can just go to YouTube, I believe, and the whole performance is up.
Whole thing's right there. Yeah.
So and the other, it's been a time of splits.
Yes. Yeah. You got a new one. You got that.
Yeah, I got to talk about this, man. It's really important too because we're doing this fundraiser.
This is the one note I had was to remember to talk about that. I almost totally forgot. So thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a fundraiser.
Yep.
A GoFundMe to pay for this record. It's with Desert Records. I don't know how my phone. Yeah, the phone's not going to load. Okay.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, so it's there's a GoFundMe. If you go to Fatso Jetson Facebook or Instagram, Fatso Jetson Band, you'll see the post there. And if you have any inclination to support this release, all it is basically is you're like pre-ordering. So,
right.
But the cool thing about pre-ordering while this fundraiser is on is you get like other groovy stuff. Excuse me. You get like perks, rather than just pre-ordering it from a distributor or from some record store, you get some groovy stuff. But the cool thing about this is it's all new music. There's a collaboration with my dear friend Sean Wheeler, and we did a beautiful kind of roots Americana tune with a friend of mine from here in Morongo Valley, Gar Williams, playing lap steel, and all new music, and they also recorded at Eddie's studio. So there's that. We also did this recording at Total Annihilation. In kind of the very same way. It was like we just threw it down live pretty much, and then I kind of went nuts with it after that. But the band on the other side of the split is a band who's been around the desert for like 30 years. Dali's Llama, they're called, and Zach and Erica are husband and wife. These people in this band, with the exception of the drummer, who's a dear guy as well, but the other people in the band, I've known these people since we were like little kids. Zach, the guitar player, singer, and Joe Dillon, the other guitar player. Like I go back to 14 years old with these guys, like as long as I've known Sean. They're Palm Springs guys, and I was a Palm Desert guy. I was originally a Palm Springs guy, but went to Palm Desert for junior high and stuff. But known these guys from the punk scene in Palm Springs since we were kids. So it's really cool. There's history in this split in the way that it's really some veteranos of the desert punk scene,
there's a lot of cool things. There's you can get like a download in like an art print. There's vinyl. There's CDs. There's like a pedal or something.
Yeah, there's a desert rap pedal, and if you're a guitar pedal guy, it's pretty rad. And this dude makes badass pedals. I have one. I have two. I've got a bass overdrive and a guitar distortion, I'll call it. But this pedal is based on it's kind of based on the schematic of the old Rat pedal. Yeah. But he mods that design, and it's called a Desert Rat, which is rad.
Tony from my band swears by that pedal, and he has I think it's a similar mod that Rebecca from Multicult does.
Oh, cool.
The Robo Trip, I think, if I remember correctly. But it's a similar-ish mod, and it sounds beastly. Like it's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you like cool bass sounds.
The Rat pedal I've used for both bass and guitar, and
and on guitar also. Yeah, you get that.
It's true. Yeah. Talking about Greg Ginn, that was like when we were kids, like if you had a PV amp and a Rat pedal, you could get pretty close to Greg's tone.
Yeah. Hey, check it out.
Yeah. But
I'm doing it.
So yeah, it's coming out on Desert Records, rad bedroom label out of New Mexico, Albuquerque. And Brad Fry is a good dude, and he is a big supporter of underground rock and roll. And he does this thing. He works 9 to 5. He's got a family. He does this as a passion. And you mentioned DIY. And that's him. So
Right.
You know, we're hoping people pre-order it because it's expensive to make records.
Sure.
We're trying to get some support on it, but what, you know, all that being said, there's some gnarly shit going on in the world, and making records is probably the last thing people should do. But if it gives you some joy and you got the extra money and everybody's fed and the gas is in the tank, then, you know, order a record, man. That'd be rad.
Right.
But yeah, it's it's called Desert Legends Volume 4. But the theme isn't that we're desert legends. It's actually based on the old spaghetti western kind of thing,
right,
of desert legends. Yeah,
no,
which is way cooler.
Although
if
you're in on the joke, it does work for a couple different ways too.
Exactly.
I'll put it in the show notes so folks can check it out. Mario, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for doing it. I know it kind of took us a while to get it together, but very, very honored to have you on the show and have you be the first show of 2023, actually. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Connor, man. It was great talking to you. And it was great playing with you recently.
Yes,
and
I would
fun
love to
setting up shows with you, and I hope we'll do it again soon.
You have to let me return the favor.
Fuck yeah. Oh, I'll do. You bet your ass. Yeah.
And so last thing, question, choose to interpret it however you like. Why do you do what you do?
Oh boy. Well, if I didn't answer that question in the last 2 hours, I can't add anything more to that.
Refer to my earlier conversation.
Yeah, I'll refer to the early conversation. No, why do I do what I do? Well, I have to. It's part of my what makes me tick, man. I love it. I love it. And it's fun, and it grounds me, and it adds beauty and magic and fucking awesomeness to my life. And that's why I do it.
I, for one, am glad that you do, my friend.
Right on. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Be well. And I'll get in on that Kickstarter before it ends because I totally forgot about it until today. So,
all right.
All right, brother. Take care. All right. There he goes. Boomer himself, Mr. Mario Lalli. Let's hear a song to play us out. Let's do a Fatso song. And thanks so much. I'll do the normal spiel a little later on. But here you go. This is something off Idle Hands. This is Nervous Eater.
I'm just feeling like the drive.
Nervous Eater off Vital Hands, a record we pretty much didn't talk about at all, but I like quite a bit. That came out in 2016. That's Fatso Jetson. You can find Fatso Jetson
Is this thing
on the internet, Facebook, Instagram. They got a Bandcamp. It's great. Again, this Kickstarter, it's at Desert Records. Legends of the Desert Volume 3. I'm going to throw that link in the show notes so you can go get that. I'll give a huge thank you to Mr. Mario Lalli. That was a great time. Love that dude. Of course, the name of this show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you very much for listening to it. The show airs Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Right here on RadioNope.com, YouTube, Twitch, all the things. Broadcast live, podcast later. Archives at ProtonicReversal.com. Always free, no ads, no sponsors, no kidding. But if you like the show and you want to get episodes sooner, well, $1 a month at patreon.com/ProtonicReversal will gladly, and I mean gladly, achieve that goal.
This is my farewell transmission.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing the show around,
Signing off.
liking the videos,
Mr. and Mrs.
sending it to a
America.
friend,
All the shit
leaving reviews, as cheeseball as it is, helps fight the almighty algorithm of
within
which
the
we all
sound of my
must
voice.
be in the sway of. Always appreciated. Got an ambitious 2023,
I've
just
got-
like the last year, and therefore that's all ambitious, folks.
50,000 watts of power.
A couple cool announcements, nothing I can share right now, unfortunately, but just stay tuned. Stay tuned. Subscribe if you don't, on whatever the thing is you listen to, this or you watch it on, whatever. That always helps. Other than that, yeah, let's try to be good to each other, huh?
This microphone turns sound
Lord knows we could use
into
it.
electricity.
Stay safe out there.
Can you hear me now? Out on
Check you later.
Route 128, you're dark and lonely. You got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 The end of radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear